Did we actually get an episode centered around Zatanna and Artemis? Where do I sign? What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Cave Chronicles, the series on the channel where we deep dive into every episode of the Young Justice series as I watch it. Currently, we're on episode 1. We just finished the 18th episode titled Secrets, and there was a lot of secrets in this episode. I'm not gonna lie to you, and I guess the title, actually, when I think about it, sounds very fitting. Just to give you a little recap, this episode sees Zatanna and Artemis go out on a night on the town in Manhattan when they are suddenly chased and hunted down by a murderous individual by the name of Harm. I guess the other villain names were taken. And what I initially suspected was nothing more than a filler episode, even though I don't think this show has any filler episodes, but this was as close as it gets. I still actually thoroughly enjoyed this episode as one of the first thematic episodes that we have experienced in the show outside of, like, I want to say the first episode, which was took place on the 4th of July. So it was nice to see an episode centered around a little bit of lightheartedness and a little bit of fun, especially coming off the heels of episodes 16 and 17, which, if you remember, were quite traumatic. And in typical Young Justice fashion, we see the team split up, as obviously this episode for the most part centers around Zatanna and Artemis, but you also see Kid Flash. He goes to a high school kind of Halloween party with Megan and Connor. And then you have another aspect of the episode where you have Batman, who is discussing this whole mole situation with Robin and Aqualad, the two kind of co-team leaders, as I'm calling it now, as they continue to try to figure out who exactly is the mole. Now, Aqualad seems pretty certain that there isn't a mole in the team, but I'm not so easily convinced. Anyway, this episode did a great job of splitting the team into different, very different, unique parts, and it, still kind of all comes together in the overall plot of the story. Now, what I want to focus on in this video specifically is the relationship between Zatanna and Artemis, who seem to be, getting pretty close. And I think that's surprising to me because Zatanna, really just kind of came into the fold a couple of episodes ago. And there are a lot of themes in this episode that I could particularly, focus on. Obviously, some of those being the dark, murderous, psycho that seems to be chasing them later in the episode. But one of the most important themes, I think, is secrets and exactly what that can do to you if you don't have someone that you can kind of, discuss these things with. And originally, if you guys watch my reaction, which might even be posted right now, I thought that Zatanna, taking Artemis was a great kind of friendship thing for her to do. But when I initially saw the episode, I thought that Artemis was upset seeing Connor, with Megan because of the fact that, it almost at the, initially it seemed like Artemis still had a thing for Connor. And in my personal opinion, I don't know how anyone didn't know at this point that Connor and Megan were a thing. I mean, yes, they haven't come out and verbally stated that they're together, but I feel like it's been pretty obvious. They look as much of a couple as they possibly could be. So initially I thought that was the reason that Artemis was upset, because she secretly had a thing for Connor. But I think as you get to the end of the episode, you really come to, kind of a different conclusion. At least I did, that maybe Artemis was upset, now obviously I'm saying this from the perspective of someone that hasn't seen the future episodes, so obviously I can only base this on what I know. We're theorizing here, and my theory is that Artemis was upset because she's developed a close kinship with Megan, and maybe she feels a little left out. Maybe she's upset that Megan didn't disclose her relationship with Connor to her. I think maybe Artemis felt like Megan didn't trust her enough to tell her that. And I think part of her insecurities really come from her own relationship with her sister, who up to this point we don't really know a lot about Cheshire Cat, but we do know that they don't have necessarily the closest of kinships. And so looking, getting to the end of the episode, it makes me think that that's the reason why Artemis was feeling the way that she was feeling. But again, that could just be copium. Maybe I'm digging too deep into it. That's definitely my personal take from it. But what was really interesting was at the end of the episode, she almost has a slip of the tongue and talks about her sister. And up to this point, no one really knows that she has a sister, because I think that would present a major conflict of interest, as a number of the team members have had run-ins with Cheshire Cat. So to know that Artemis is in fact working with the Young Justice League, and that she has a sister on the other side who has ties with the League of Assassins or something like that, right? It could be pretty problematic for Artemis. So one thing that I've noticed, and one thing that I've mentioned throughout my time watching this series so far, is that it feels like as we get closer to the end of season 1, 1, it definitely feels like the walls are closing in, and this inevitable secret that Artemis has that we as the viewer don't even know yet up to this point, I think is really starting to close in, and at some point it's gonna pop. And when we talk about secrets, I think that's where Harm really, kind of is the best villain for this episode, and we'll get into his whole dark story in a second. But I think him coming in and kind of fighting against Artemis and almost psychoanalyzing her, almost giving her a free therapy session while he's kicking her ass in the beginning of the episode, it ties back to, I would say, the overall themes of the episode surrounding secrets and kind of how that eats away at you. So it was a great placement of this particular villain when they could have really just picked anybody to fight up against Zatanna and Artemis. But this particular villain, I think, was the perfect, catalyst that I think is going to lead to Artemis's secret coming out. And I feel like it's once again, what appears like a filler initially, I think is really continuing to set up some critical pieces towards the end of season 1. Now let's talk about the main villain of this episode, Harm, who, in my opinion, might be one of the coldest villains this side of Thanos, because to kill your own sister is diabolical. And, finding out at the end of the episode that that's what Harm did in order for nothing more than just to achieve power is insane. Because when you think of a character like Thanos, right, I think that's what made him such a great villain, is although, what he did was wrong, and, annihilating half of humanity is arguably terrible. I think when you look at his motivations, right, he truly was someone that believed in what he was doing. And I think that's what makes such a compelling villain, is a villain that's not just bad for the sake of being bad, or bad because something bad happened to them in their life that resulted in them wanting to just go down the dark side, right? Based on some sort of undealt trauma, right? Like, Thanos was such a great villain because he truly felt like he was doing God's work in a way. Like, he was out here doing the thing that he knew needed to be done for the greater good of everyone, and ultimately, like, he was the one that was willing to shoulder that burden. And to this day, he's one of the greatest villains, I think, one of the greatest written villains, I think, to ever exist. But this villain, Harm, was on the complete opposite spectrum. This dude was just bad for the sake of being bad. He wanted power, he knew how to get it, and he was someone that was willing to just give it all away. So he was like, I gotta unalive my sister? Oh, 100%, done deal. Like, that's crazy. Ultimately, though, I still liked him for a villain. I don't think he would be a main villain throughout the entire series, but I think as an episode villain, I think they picked a great one to kind of continue to poke, the bubble that is, Artemis's secret and her secret life, and the things that her team don't really know about her that she's not willing to disclose just yet. Overall, guys, this episode tied in beautifully. And like I said, I originally thought that it was about, just a filler episode where the kids are celebrating Halloween or whatever, but there's some serious points and some serious plot moments that are occurring here within this episode that I think are really going to play into the last, 6 or 7 episodes that we have in season 1. So I'm really excited to see how these pieces are going to play out as we get to episode 19, 20, and so on. Overall, guys, I really enjoyed this episode. I'd say if I had to rank it, I would give it probably an 8 out of 10. I think it was a solid episode, obviously coming off the heels of episode 16, episode 17. I mean, it's a tall order, but overall, I think it stands well on its own. And it was, it had good elements of story mixed with action, mixed with fun, that I think is really what I've come to love about this show. I think it balances all those elements so well, and I can't wait to see exactly how those important plot points are going to play into the rest of the season. And now we're on to a new segment on this series that I like to call Sidekick Sessions, where I read your comments from the previous recap videos that we done. And the comments that I've chosen for this particular episode comes from our episode 16 recap, where we talked about the, incredible climactic moments that occurred in episode 16 Failsafe, which was, like I said, traumatic. This comment comes from Nablon518 that says, glad you're continuing in some way. Hopefully you watch 17 soon, as I think they should be watched back to back. And now that I've seen a lot of comments about this, and I really enjoyed this comment, because looking back after watching episode 16, and then, at the time I immediately watched episode 17 right after, because I felt like I needed to know what happened. And after watching episode 17, I still think back and wish that they had titled it part 1, part 2, because I do think those episodes play very well in tandem with one another. And episode 17 is a direct, kind of follow up to the events of 16. So, almost putting that episode together as a longer episode, or at least titling it part 1, part 2, is probably the only change that I would make to what I consider to be perfect 10 out of 10 episodes. I really enjoyed them, but yeah, I think I'm glad that I watched them back to back instead of saving it, because I think that really would have messed me up. And I'm glad we did the recap and then immediately talked about episode, and then immediately went into watching episode 17, because that was, I mean, it was insane. So I'm glad I didn't wait on that, because I feel like the emotion that I went into with episode 17 wouldn't have been the same had I waited, you know, a week or a couple days post watching 16. So yeah, really good episode. Another comment that I really enjoyed was Sydney Stevens 8331, who says, "Thank you for your dedication. I've loved your videos and takes. This episode is insane. I'm so glad you got into it." And to that I say, that is very true. See, episode 16, you know, before I got to episode 16, guys, I mean, I had talked very highly about episode 9. Episode 9, Bereft, was incredible. And it was an episode that was very trippy, and it was very wild, and it saw all of our heroes in situations that we wouldn't expect them to be in. I think it was the first time that we saw Kid Flash and Artemis kind of, you know, be on, you know, kind of a duo team for a little bit. And it was just overall, it was just a great episode. And then we got to episode 14, Revelation, which was even better in my opinion. I loved episode 9. Episode 14 kicked it up even further, but I feel like both of those episodes have been blown out of the water when it came to watching episode 16, Failsafe. That now, for now at least, I don't know, we still have a long way to go in the season, but episode 16 at this current point is my hands down favorite episode of the season. So I'm really excited to see if there's an episode that can potentially beat that one out of the water, because right now that to me is a perfect episode. But yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to be able to share in this experience with you guys. It has been an absolute roller coaster. It's been a ride, and I know it's, you know, the whole situation has been kind of frustrating with posting these videos here, but just know that, you know, I'm really giving this series my all, and I want to continue to share in these experiences with you guys and talk about this show. And so, you know, we're going to keep on pushing. We're going to keep on pushing until we get to the end. So thank you so much for joining me on what I consider the ultimate watch party. So thank you all for your comments. If you would like to be featured on what I'm considering sidekick sessions or sidekick spotlight or whatever, you know, the name is pending, but if you'd like to be featured in the next episode that we do, the next recap episode, all you got to do is drop a comment in this video, either saying something you've really enjoyed about the series so far up to episode 16 or 17, maybe a particular moment that really stood out to you, maybe you have a favorite character, or, you know, if there's some feedback you have on this channel, you know, things that you want to share with me, let me know in the comment section, and maybe you'll be featured in the next episode. We're trying to get these episodes out literally every day, so I appreciate any support you guys show on them. As for me, guys, that is all. Episode 18, Secrets, was nothing short of spectacular, and if you're looking to watch the episode, it is available right now on Patreon. It's totally free. You can become a free member, and you'll be able to watch the episode and comment, and, you know, any sort of support you guys show on that, and really helps and it means the world. So thank you guys so much for the support. If you enjoyed this video though, drop a like on it, as it greatly helps out the channel, helps this video get seen by more people, and hopefully we can make more friends who enjoy Young Justice as much as we do. Comment down below what's your favorite thing about this series so far, and subscribe if you're new here. And you know, if you enjoy the content and want to become part of the ultimate watch party, you're already in the right place. As for me, guys, if there's another show that you would love to see me watch that is similar in quality to Young Justice, let me know in the comment section. I'm looking to get another series on the YouTube channel, so if there's something else you'd love to see me watch while we're continuing to watch Young Justice, let me know as well, and maybe we'll consider trying to add an episode or two every week. So, but that's all for me, guys. It's enough of my rambling. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.